learning speaker. He is a member and a deacon at Grace Baptist Church Los Baños, and he also works as a professor here in UP Los Baños. He is a husband to Myla and a father to their 6 kids. To speak on the topic, Small Acts for a Big God, here is Deacon Glenn Gregorio.
Thank you very much, Elisa, for that kind introduction. And again, I just remember that a year ago, I also spoke to this RCM where I talked about my genetics and my faith. Talagang eksaktong 1 year. Anyway, so we have a series now about the youth, about you, our youth. Kami hindi na masyado youth, but our topic is more on faith and folly. But I decided to talk. Marami na tayong natutunan sa previous mga speakers natin about our faith, the mga youth, example ng mga youth sa Biblia. But now I chose a different topic, also about youth then, but something different which I may call small acts for a big God. Actually, it takes me a long time to look for a good title for this one to be more engaging, but finally, after some consultation, I just decided to make it entitled Small Acts for a Big God. So I have some few slides to share to you. I just want to show here that my main point of my topic is I'm just saying that there are a lot of ordinary things that we are doing for our Lord that sometimes we take it for granted. Sometimes we see it just as small things, but God uses these things. God uses ordinary people. God uses you, even the prophets, even our disciples, mga big people sa Bible, they start using them in small acts. Now I'll be showing you some of the 2 simple characters. Now these are the youth that are not even their names were not mentioned in the Bible, but they have some acts that really used by God, and they even become a model for us, for you, especially for us youth. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, for youth, I just want to give you some random, or what I mean, based on what you know about youth, just to review us again. If you talk about youth, especially youth for today, we are calling them, they are the spontaneous and very adventurous. So tayo yung laging gala, laging may gimmick, laging on action, laging may action. There's a lot of, pag nakatigil lang, nabobore agad ang mga youth. So that's a characteristics of a youth. They are full of energy. Kahit gutom yan, talagang punong-puno pa rin ng energy. And they love parties, they love technology. Sometimes nasa party sila, ginagamit pa rin nagte-text naman or nagpe-Facebook, nasa party din sila, kanyang tingin-tingin sa kanya sa phone o kaya sa tablet. So they love parties and technologies. They want instant. Parang gustong mabilis lahat. Everything should be there. Isang click lang, isang pindot lang, lalabas na. I remember those days when we don't have phones, we don't have Google, we don't have anything. But if we want to, kahit spelling, pinagdidebatehan pa rin, I have to go to the other room to ask for anong spelling ba talaga nito. Or especially kung wala akong dictionary maliit. So we have to go to that. Tama ba ang grammar? Naalala ko. Ano ba yun? Chose ba yun? Chose ang gagamitin ko. Advice or advice. Yung mga ganong mga words na gusto natin ngayon instant, na naiinip agad tayo. So those are characteristics of a youth. Kaya meron tayong mabilis na ngayon. Noon panahon, wala pa tayong instant noodle eh. Ngayon, instant na lahat. Instant coffee, pati sinigang, may instant na. Noon, pipigain mo pa yung sampalok para makaroon ka ng sinigang. Ngayon, may magic sarap ba yun? Ganon. Then sometimes, and most of the time also, especially yung mga bagong graduates, they want to go to a job na have a huge impact, immediate impact agad. Meron agad sila kahit kinabukasan may impact na agad yung trabaho nila. Sabi ko, 6 months ka pa lang, gusto mo agad ng may impact, parang nabobore na agad siya kasi walang impact yung ginagawa niya. So yun ang ating ang trait ng mga youths ngayon. So we are in thirst of impressions. Pinsan mag-post ka sa Facebook, minuto titignan mo kung may nag-like o may nag-comment. Minsan ganan. Hindi lang siguro bata, pati matatanda siguro. Thirst of impressions. Kailangan may, anong tingin mo? Anong masabi mo? Anong masabi mo sa buhok ko? Anong masabi mo sa bago kong makeup, bagong damit, or bago kong post? Diba? Yun ang mga, we are thirst of impression. We need some reassurance. Which parang bata, di ba? Lagi mo sabihin ang batang mahal mo siya, ayos lang yan, that will be okay. So, ganon. And we don't want, itong isang important, we don't want to do small things, small tasks. Especially if you build something, ayaw natin dun sa detalye, mga small things. So, isang trait yun na, these are the things I want to show in my next slides, in my next my next slides and my next message. I want to show that simple acts, ordinary acts, small acts ay ginagamit ng Panginoon. Small acts for a big God. So I'll give you two passages na dito tayo mag-revolve. Two passages about youth. These are two na youth or bata, isang lalaki, isang babae, na hindi man lang, walangan lang silang pangalan, na mention silang kaunti, but mga acts nila ay naggamit ng Panginoon. Okay? So, next slide please. Okay. We have here about Jesus feeds the 5,000 people. So, ito ay hangos sa John 6, 1-7. Actually, pwede mong basahin hanggang pababa. But Elisa, can I request you to read it para mas clear ang basa kaysa ako magbasa nito? Please.
Okay po. Okay. After this, Jesus went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd was following him because they saw the signs that he was doing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand. Lifting up his eyes then and seeing that a large crowd was coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread would not be enough for each of them to get a little.
Next slide.
One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they for so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down, about 5,000 in number. Jesus then took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. And when they had eaten their fill, he told his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments, that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten. And when the people saw the sign that he had done, they said, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world."
Okay, thank you, Elisa. So you could see here, Jesus feeds the 5,000. The most important na gusto kong i-emphasize sa talk kong dito ay there is a boy here who have 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Okay? So actually this is a very graphic sa akin because I have the opportunity to visit the place. I went to the Sea of Galilee. Actually, it's not a sea, it's a lake. Ang Sea of Galilee is a lake. Sinabi nga doon, actually, mas kilala siya doon na Lake of Kinneret. Actually, isang lake yan. At yung fish doon, alam mo anong isda ang nandoon? Ay tilapia. Actually, ang tilapia doon, ang tawag doon ay St. Peter's fish. Okay? May bago kayong learning ha. Pag tilapia, St. Peter's fish yan. Kaya yung nakain nila dyan na dalawang fish ay yan ay tilapia. So, kahit kayo nakakain na rin ng tilapia, di ba? So, yun ang kwento niyan. And they're using 5 instead of wheat. It's barley, medyo coarse ang barley. Ang barley ay ginagawang bread pero lower quality siya ng konti kaysa wheat bread. Mas fine ang bread ng barley. Okay, just some trivia sa inyo. Okay, so this is about the boy who naggamit ng Panginoon, who brought with him 5 barleys of bread and 2 loaves of barley breads and 2 fish. Okay, let's go to the next slide where this is about Naaman, the servant of Naaman healed of leprosy. Okay, Elisa, can you please read it again for me?
Okay po. Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man, and his master and in high favor. With his master and high in favor, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. Now the Syrians on one of their raids had carried off a little girl from the land of Israel, and she worked in the service of Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "Would that my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria. He would cure him of his leprosy." So Naaman went in and told his Lord, "Thus and so spoke the girl from the land of Israel." And the king of Syria said, "Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel."
Okay, thank you, Elisa. Actually, I also was able to go to Samaria in one of my visit to Israel. Kaya medyo alam ko ito. So this is again a story of a servant, na Hebrew servant, na slave siya. Walang pangalan. But he was used by the Lord. Actually sa dito naging believer ito si Naaman. So makita natin niya na these are the bata, slave siya, sumunod siya sa kanyang captor. Naging slave siya siguro during the time na-invade sila, napatay siguro yung papa niya dahil sa gera na yan. Kinuha siya as a slave, dinala siya doon, sumunod siya at naging loyal servant siya sa general ng Syria, which is si Naaman. Okay? So yun ang kwento. Again, I want to go back again doon sa unang kwento natin. Next slide, please. I'll go. Can you go to the next slide? So this is about the boy with the loaves of bread at saka yung servant ni Naaman na pareho silang walang pangalan, hindi nabanggit, but they are being used by the Lord. By the way, the boy ay ginamit siya to feed the 5,000. Actually, another trivia dito, itong Lake of Galilee, may slope doon na pwedeng umupo ang Panginoon doon, which we went there actually, na pwedeng yung 5,000 pwedeng umupo doon, nakaka-echo yung sound nila, parang nagbabounce yung sound doon na kaya niyang isang sigaw niya ay naririnig ng lahat. Kaya posible pala yung area na yon. Okay? So just to give you another na pwede sila mag-rally doon na walang microphone kasi maganda ang acoustic doon na naririnig sila so the Lord could talk to the 5,000 people and feed them there. Okay. So again, I just want to show that these are the youth. These are the 2 examples of the youth in the Bible na wala man silang pangalan, parang insignificant sila. They are so unimportant na ginamit ng Panginoon. Kaya my simple message here is, in ordinary things, simple acts, God may use you. Okay, next slide. I just want to show here itong boy dito sa ating binasa sa John 6:1-7 and the following. So you will say here that no one in the crowd would have thought that this boy mattered. So parang hindi mo alam siguro o sumama lang siya sa kasama yung kanyang pagkain ay among the 5,000 ay siya ang napili na gamit ng Panginoon. Minsan, alam na ng Panginoon ang sagot doon sa kanyang question na paano natin papakainin to, pero may plano na siya. But pwede naman siya mag-magic na lang siguro doon or magpapadami siyang ng pagkain kahit walang example. But ginamit niya itong sample ng bata na ito, youth, na in a simple act, inoffer niya ang kanyang pagkain. So you could even imagine few hours back, makita din natin yung act ng mother na pinak niya yung kanyang pagkain para sa bata. Ang bata naman sumunod, hindi lang siya tumakbo at gusto niya siguro makinig sa Panginoon. Sumama siya, nag-pack siya ng lunch. Sumunod ang bata, dala-dala yung madami-dami din yung 2 isda at 5 loaves of bread. Pero bit-bit na yun. Sumunod siya. So makita natin acts ng mother, act ng bata ay ginamit ng Panginoon. So even the child sacrifices his lunch for a bigger purpose. So hindi niya tinagong akin to, but inoffer niya sa Panginoon. So ganun din ang mga ginagawa natin. He never receives glory. Siguro after the end ng kwan doon, hindi natin nakitang pinagpurihan siya. Ang Panginoon ang pinuri. So may mga acts ganun ang Panginoon sa atin na ginagamit tayo not for our own glory, but we should give glory to our Lord. He never receives glory that time, but he is so happy na ginamit siya ng Panginoon. Siguro happy siya kasi binilak siya. Ang dami pang na sobrang pagkain na tira. Naibalik siguro sa kanyang mas marami pag-uwi sa kanyang nanay. So tayo, you're not missed. You are maybe tired of doing your things. You are even unnoticed. But you are not missed. Nagagamit, nakikita ka ng Panginoon. Nakikita ka ng Panginoon sa ginagawa mo, kahit sa ministry mo, sa ginagawa mo sa eskwela, sa ginagawa mo sa bahay, ginagawa mo sa, kahit nagagawa ka lang sa dito sa RCM natin, sa Reformed Christian Ministry. Ikaw ba'y tagagawa lang ng poster? Ikaw ba'y taga-invite lang? Those are the things that ginagamit ng Panginoon. Ikaw ba ay moderator lang? Ikaw ba ay nasa technical ka dito? Biglang nawala sa connection. Wala lahat, di ba? Hindi lang yung speaker ang importante. Importante lahat. Ginagamit ng Panginoon lahat ng mga bagay na yan for His own glory. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Yung next slide naman, ito naman yung the servant ng Naaman. So that's sa 2 King 5:1-19. So ito yung youth na babae na na-share niya yung faith niya. So he must be a child or bata pa siya. Teenager siguro siya. Kaya kinuha siya sa niya. Medyo pwede itong magtrabaho. Kinuha siya. Binili siya ni Naaman. Ginawa siyang katulong ng kanyang asawa. Siguro during that time, kuha na siya, talagang believer na siya doon kasi kilala niya ang propeta. Then what happened is, talagang naging loyal siya sa kanyang, he is a believer, she is a believer, a lowly servant, a lowly slave. Kahit slave siya, naging loyal siya sa kanyang pinagsilbihan. At ano nangyari? Siguro ungodly yung kanyang pinagsisilbihan, but naging loyal siya doon kasi tinawag siya para mag-serve doon at siya ay ginamit ng Panginoon para si Naaman ay para sabihin niyang mayroong propeta sa Israel na pwedeng maging makatulong kina Naaman na matanggal ang kanyang leper. So siguro mahaba ang kwento dito, but in short talagang hindi siya takot. Hindi siya takot na siya ay masabi niyang makakatulong siya. So loyal siya, godly youth who did not feel she was too unimportant to influence others. So kahit servant siya, kinausap siguro niya yung asawa, kinuwento niya ang kanyang buhay. Ibig sabihin, he must be very maganda ang kanyang testimony, mabait siya, sumusunod siya na pinapakinggan siya ng kanyang master. Nang dumating pa kay General Naaman, hanggang sila ay pumunta na sa Israel, ay sa Israel para siya ay pagalingin. So she even evangelized siguro kasi sabi siya ng propeta. So bago maniwala si Naaman, sinabi niyang gaano kalakas ang kanyang Panginoon at paano niya nasisub. Kaya naniwala sila. Okay? So yun ang gusto kong i-emphasize dito. Next slide. I think this is my last slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. Okay. So what I am saying here, small acts for a big God. So marami tayong, as a youth, you don't need to be the leader para maging significant ka. You could do small things, small acts na nagagamit ng Panginoon. Pwede ba tayong, naalala ko, I'm talking to my kids noon sa church, ang mga unang trabaho namin, taga-bitbit kami ng hymnals, taga-bitbit ng organ. So imagine naman, consistent yan. Sunday after Sunday, yan ang gawain namin. Imagine pagpunta mo sa church, hindi mo nagre-rent lang kami sa government office, government facilities noon. Kung hindi mo dala ang hymnal, di ang hirap kumanta. Wala naman kaming cellphone na nandun ang mga songs namin. Walang mag-organ. So, ganon. So, simple things. There's no small acts in the eyes of God. So, mga small acts natin ginagamit ng Panginoon yun. Kagaya ng ginamit sa batang nagdala ng tinapay, ginamit the greatest miracle, isa sa mga miracle ginawa ng Panginoon, tsaka yung mga sermon ng Panginoon ginamit para mapakain din ang kanyang mga alagad para nakinig sila sa sermon niya. Ordinary acts is always noticed by God. So don't be a man pleaser na small acts mo ay gusto mong mapuri ka, but those are always noticed by the Panginoon. Kasi siya, diba, sabi na all and everything we do it to the glory of God, hindi for ourselves. So those are noticed. Hindi mo na-notice ng ating kaibigan o ng ministry o ng government ang ginawa mo, but those are noticed by our Lord Jesus Christ. And the last take-home message I want to say about the small acts for a big God. God uses ordinary people like you and me for extraordinary things for His own glory. So God uses ordinary people, the youth, kayo, kami, for extraordinary things for the glory of our Lord. So yun lang ang message na gusto kong i-convey sa inyo. We are already in our experienced age, that those are the things that we want to share to you na kayong mga bata or bata pa tayo, we have to show that we have to remember that God uses ordinary people like you or me for extraordinary things for the glory of our Lord. Thank you. Back to you, our moderator, and I'm now ready for any specific, if you want to ask us any specific question. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Deacon Glenn, for your talk. Now we will move on to our Q&A portion, but first let me give you a few reminders. Please keep your questions short and to the point. We would like that would be preferred so that we can have as much time as many questions as possible. Please avoid asking questions regarding very specific cases that might involve sharing private information. For live questions, you may use Zoom's raise hand function to be acknowledged by me, the moderator, or you may send them through the Zoom chat or privately to our RCM Zoom host, Brother Jonathan, or to me, Sister Eliza. Those joining via FB Live, you may ask your questions by sending them to the comments section on our Facebook Live, or you may also send a private message to the RCM Facebook page. Your questions will be forwarded to the speaker as time permits. Okay, let's go to our questions na po. Okay, Deacon Glenn, we have our first question here. Is there such thing as a small ministry?
Okay, a good question. If you ask about quantity, so you have small ministry kung kakamti lang ang tao doon. So it depends upon the what. But what I'm saying, kahit gano'n ka small ang ministry mo, kung we say children's ministry, those are sometimes you look at it as a small ministry, but imagine this children ministry, you are influencing the children, mga formative years nila. Ako, one of my most memorable or hindi ko makalimutan ay yung mga Sunday school ko na pinag-atin na noon na hindi pa nga ako yung mga sabi they call it mga daily noon ay parang daily vacation Bible school noon. Yun ang mga naalala ko mga kwento. Yun ang mga naalala ko which influenced me as an adult. So I'm just saying those are sa tingin ng tao small. You may not be a preaching ministry. You are not yung big ministries na tumutulong sa big community or nation. Small things. But sa Panginoon, pareho yan. Vocation mo yung ministry mo. Yung ginagawa mo sa kaibigan in a silent way, those are small things that are acts that is pleasing to our big God. Thank you.
Okay, so kahit mukhang maliit po yung gawain, the impact is still the same. It's important for the kingdom glory po. So we have a next question here. Ano po ang maipapayo nyo sa mga kabataan na kung baga small acts ang ginagawa para sa Panginoon, pero walang nakikitang impluensya o epekto sa iba? Baka na-discourage na sila sa pagtuloy, na magpatuloy. Sorry.
Yeah, very kwan yan. Kasi minsan parang routine na lang yung ginagawa natin, walang impact sa ginagawa natin, walang yung tumutulong. But makita mo yan after sometimes ang Panginoon ginagamit yan, it may take months, it may take sometimes years bago maka-influence yan. I just remember in my college years, meron kaming talagang kinakausap, meron kang ini-evangelize, meron kang kinakausap tungkol sa Panginoon, sa Panginoon about salvation, tinatawanan ka lang. Naalala ko noon, tinatawag sa amin noon sa grupo namin, divers club daw kasi pag kumakain parang nagda-dive, nakayuko, nakahawak na ganun parang mga divers club daw tawag sa amin. Parang seko walang pag-asa ito. But after nung many years after nagkita kami, he appreciated yung testimony nila namin noon, nakita niya yung diferensya at nag-change siya. At siya ay lalong napalapit sa Panginoon at ginamit niya yung divers club na yun para siya ay na-influensa. Sabi niya, kami nagre-ridiculous sa inyo pero inoobserbahan namin kayo. So yun, those are an example na small acts na ginagamit ng Panginoon. So wag tayo, don't be, sabi nga ng Panginoon, don't be tired of doing things. In due time, you will reap what you sow. So kung anong tinanim mo, maaani mo rin yan sa Panginoon.
Okay, thank you po. I would just like to remind po our audience, our people here watching on Facebook Live or on Zoom, if you have any questions here on Zoom, you may use the raise hand function on Zoom to be acknowledged by me, or you can send them to the Zoom chat privately to Brother Jonathan, our host, or to me, the moderator. And for those on Facebook Live, you may comment your questions. Or if you don't want to comment, you can also send a private message to the RCM Facebook page, and we will forward your questions to the speaker as time permits. Okay, Deacon Glenn, we have another question here asking, how can we avoid an attitude of kulang sa pansin or KSP or gustong mapansin, especially for the ministries?
Yeah, very important yon kasi as I mentioned, especially sa youth, kasabi ko, kahit hindi youth, we are thirst of anong sabi ko doon? We have the may thirst tayo for impression. Anong impression doon? Puri, di ba? Kahit sino naman, talagang kailangan din natin yon in some sense. Kahit kayo Kristiyano or kayo ay sa mga sinusupervise nyo, dapat puriin nyo rin kahit from time to time. Anak nyo ba, asawa nyo ba, o kaibigan niya, pinupuri nyo rin siya. Pero may time talagang hindi tayo napupuri. Lagi yung pinapaalala ko sa sarili kong yung verse na shinare ko kanina, I think sa Ephesians ba yun? Or sa don't be tired or don't be weary in doing good. In due time, you will reap what you sow. So, ganon. I'm saying na small things, parang kung farmer or planter ka, magtanim ka, hindi ka mamumunga bukas. Or after 1 month, wala pang bunga yan, dilig ka ng dilig. Magsasawa ka. Pero pag namunga na, doon mo na yung kaligayahan mo. So, yun ang sinasabi ng Panginoon. We should follow, sabi ng Panginoon, na continue of what you're doing for good kasi ang Panginoon, you will not be left unnoticed ng Panginoon at doon ka palaging for His glory, hindi yung puri ng tao. That will keep you going.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. We have another question here. Sabi po, mali ba po kung gustuhin ng isang Kristiyano na makilala o maging sikat para makilala ng iba ang Panginoon sa pamamagitan ng kanyang big acts?
Again, pakiulit mo, Elisa.
Okay. Mali po ba kung gustuhin ng isang Kristiyano na makilala o maging sikat para makilala ng iba ang Panginoon sa pamamagitan ng kanyang big acts? Or is it okay for a Christian to want to be famous or popular so that others can get to know the Lord through His big acts?
I think sa akin ay mayroon tayong may term din. May puwang yan. Parang may room din sa mga ganyan. May time na unnoticed. Meron din time na you could be, I may say, Christians may excel in their vocation at yun ay naluluok up ng ibang tao. Hindi yung tataas siya tapos yayabang siya, but nakikita nilang tumataas siya, binibless siya ng Panginoon, masipag siya, nabibless siya ng Panginoon, tumataas siya, hinahangaan siya, and nami-maintain niyang testimony para lalo ang tao ay makakasunod sa kanya. I think that's a very powerful, your action mo. Kung ikaw naman ay, minsan ay ikaw naman ay Kristiyano, ikaw ay manampalataya pero mediocre ka sa ginagawa mo, hindi ka nakikilala dahil mediocre sa ginagawa mo, di lalong walang napapalapit sa Panginoon. But pag ikaw ay masipag, minsan nabibless ka ng Panginoon, tumataas ka, but you have to stay humble. You stay still talking about pag pinuri ka, it's because God bless me and this is for the glory of God. Lalo silang maging curious sa ginagawa mo at ginagamit ng Panginoon yun para sila ay lalong sumunod. Sino bang Panginoon niya? Susundin ko kasi nakikita kong binibless siya ng Panginoon at the same time siya ay yung humble pa rin. Again, i-mention ko ulit yung kanina, it should be Galatians 6:9. Thank you for that. So don't be tired or weary in doing good. In due time, you will reap what you sow.
Yes, okay. So thank you for that answer, Deacon Glenn. We have another question here sent to us. Sabi po, how would you advise youth na masyadong mahiyain at lagi na lang tago ng tago at ayaw na tuloy mag-serve sa kahit anong ministry?
Ganyan din ako noon. Tahimik din ako, parang ganun. It's okay to be silent. Yun ang character natin. You could do some acts na hindi ka visible. Yun ang advice ko. Kung ayaw mo, halimbawa, hindi mo talaga kayang mag-moderate or mag-song ka or humarap sa tao, I think it's okay. Hindi mo pa time, but you could do other things. Ikaw ba taga-gawa ng poster? Ikaw ba taga-encourage ng mga iba? Naalala ko noon, ako ang ginagawa ko lang dahil mahihain ako noon. Alam ni Pastor yun, mahihain ako noon. Sundo lang ako ng mga bata for children's ministry, dinadala ko lang silang ganon. Binibit-bit ko na sila from Grove papunta dito sa Axie. Dadalhin ko sila. So those are simple acts. Dadala ka ng hymnal, those are kayo ay nasa computer, tutulong kayo sa sa IT, tutulong kayo sa paglinis ng church. Those are small acts, actually big things na yon na pwede niyong gawin kung mahihain kayo. So, it's not an excuse na dahil mahihain kayo, wala kayong gawa. Magwawalis ba? Mahiya ka ba magwalis? o maglinis, o mag-encourage ng ibang tao, o magsundo, o mag-serve, o magluto, yung mga ganong acts. You could start from small things. Those are very important.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Once again, I'll just remind our audience po na for live questions here on Zoom, you may use the raise hand function to be acknowledged by me, the moderator, or you may send them through Zoom chat or privately to me or to our Zoom host, Brother Jonathan Medalla.
O baka may iba pang gustong magdagdag doon sa sinabi ko, baka kulang or may experiences kayong ganun na overcome nyo, na nahiya kayo, o mayroon kayong instances na masabing ito lang ginawa ko, then after few years sa children's ministry, mayroon na convert dahil sa children's ministry, yung mga ganon. So, pwede nyo rin gawin yun.
Yes, po, testimonies are also welcome if you'd like to share. We have another question here, Deacon Glenn. Sabi po, there is the principle of doing your best in everything you do. Okay lang ba po for a Christian to settle for the small acts rather than work towards bigger things? Does this compare to the principle of doing your best?
Yeah, I think there's no conflict doon na doing your best, even in small things you could do best. Diba sabi sa Colossians 3:23 ba? Sana tama ako, Pastor. In everything do it for the glory of God. All things, kahit sa mga paghuhugas lang, you have to do it for the glory of God. So kahit you do your best, it doesn't mean you do your best, you do big things. You could do small things, ordinary things, the best. Di ba? Hindi naman ibig sabihin, hindi ako ang speaker. Moderator lang ako. Hindi yun ang best ko. Ako dapat ang speaker. No. Hindi ako dito lang ako sa IT. Dito lang ako sa support lang ng team sa pag-ayos ng Zoom. Pag-admit ng mga visitors. Hindi naman ako ang moderator, hindi ako ang speaker. I'm just doing small things. No, you have to do small things. You could do small things, do it best for our Lord. There's no reminders at there's no small acts for our big God. Those are ginagamit ng Panginoon.
Okay, thank you, Deacon Glenn. We have a forwarded testimony. Ang sabi po, one of my biggest fears when I became a member of the church is that I would not be able to do anything big enough for the Lord. I remember even sharing the struggle with Pastor, but by God's grace, I found the smallest things can be the biggest influences for the Lord. Creating publicity materials and quote posts from sermons preached at the pulpit may seem small, but it reaches hundreds to thousands of people when posted online.
Yeah, yung mga small things siguro, lalo na noon na wala pang computer, taga-drawing lang. Gagawa kami ng posters noon sa pag-RCM noon. Gagawa ng poster, yung 20 posters. Tapos pagkatapos, didikit pa namin yan sa mga lahat ng buildings. You have to walk in the evening para idikit yung mga posters. Every day, check pa namin yung baka ninakaw o pinunit o tinanggal, ibabalik ulit namin. So, those are small things, small acts na ginagamit ng Panginoon. Ginagamit pa rin, ni-notice ng Panginoon at ginagamit niya for His own glory, for the ministry. At tinuturuan tayo ng Panginoon ng small things, then we go to medium things, to big things, to hanggang nakakaya natin. Pwede na tayong humarap sa tao, pwede na tayong magsulat, pwede na tayong mag-lead ng Bible study, o pwede na tayong pwede na tayong mag-preach. So, may transition yan. Iba siguro yan. Makausap mo yung mga pastor or the great writers, they start by carrying hymnal. They start by cleaning the church. They start cleaning the pulpit. Nagpa-practice sila sa pulpit magsalita. Ganon, maraming kwentong ganon.
Yes, and if I may add to that testimony, ako din po when I became a member, I was scared of joining a ministry because the people closest to me were doing, it seemed to me that the people closest to me were doing so much for the ministry, and I thought na, oh, hindi naman ako makakaabot sa ganong level and my abilities are so small compared to theirs. Pero titas and my mother would also tell me na, you start with the small things, hindi ka makakaabot ng ganon without being responsible in the small things, yung pag-welcome ng mga tao, nangamusta ng mga visitors. Those are the small things that are just as needed as the seemingly big things po. So thank you for the person who sent the testimony po, and we will move on to our next question. Ang sabi po, humility is usually seen as a weakness, especially in youths. How could you promote this virtue with a world that views humble people as weak?
Yeah, actually that's very good, especially in these modern times where if you are weak, people will prey on you. Prey, so they will kakainin ka. But that's why yun ang unique ng Christian. Christian should be humble, na pwede pa rin tayo. I may say we could still excel if we are humble. Pwede ka pa rin mag-compete society if you're humble. At pwede ka rin tumaas. So, yun ang difference ng Kristiyano. Pag Kristiyano ka, pwede ka maitaas but humble ka. Yun ang papasok yung sinasabi mo kanina yung testimony na sometimes you are humble but you excel in a silent way, then you will be blessed ng Panginoon. Baka gamitin ng Panginoon na i-bless ka but humble ka pa. Then people will look up to you. Then they will emulate, they will make you as a model na ito pala yung Kristiyano, na pwede pala maging humble, na pwede ka palang pwede ka pa mag-excel, ginagamit ka pa ng Panginoon. So naging attraction sa iyo.
Thank you for your answer po. We'll move on to our next question. Being part of a team or a church helps youth overcome fears of being seen as small or weak. How could the church promote this team spirit among youths?
Again, ulitin mo nga Elisa, can you repeat the question?
Okay po. Sabi po, being part of a team or a church helps youth overcome their fears of being seen as small or weak. How could the church promote this team spirit among youths?
Yeah, kaya nga like example sa church natin, GBCLB. So we have this project on passing on the baton. So we are giving some leadership sa mga youth, giving them projects na sila nagli-lead and forming some teams within them. Na at the same time encouraging them na hindi yung critical, nakikita ng mga matatanda ba or may say mga matured sa church na natatakot silang nandang encouragement, simple mistake binabaliwala lang, mini-mentor sila. So I think that's very important na at the same time minsan po nandray sa sobrang extreme na tayo ay hindi na kinokorek kahit mali na yung ginagawa ng bata, very good pa rin yan. So nandun yung we call it, kahit sa church may coaching tayo, may mentoring tayong ginagawa. Okay? So again, I want to repeat again yung sabi ko kanina na Colossians 3:23 na whatever you do it best for the Lord. May isa din sinabi sa 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. So doon din sa kaninang question, doon sa Matthew 23:12, ang sinabi doon, Matthew 23:12, whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. So yun ang uniqueness ng Kristiyano, na baliktad tayo doon sa normal ng kwan na dapat mayabang ka, dapat you have to love yourself. Parang yung self-esteem dapat itaas mo, iyabang mo sarili mo para walang manloko sa iyo. So yun ang kabihan ng Kristiyano. We have to have the counterculture on that one. Thank you.
Yes po. I think one thing, the passing the baton ministry in church helps us realize na it isn't about us and what we have to offer. It really is how God works through us. And ayun po, the first generation's preparing to leave it to the next generation by training us and mentoring us. And that's very important po for the church to continue. So it's not about the first generation or whatever generation, is about continuing it for God's glory, not our own.
Well said, Patricia.
Okay po. We have one more question here po. You can give me a minute po. So if anyone wants to habol any questions, mga testimonies po are welcome. Here on Zoom, you may use the raise hand function so that I may acknowledge you. Or if you don't want to speak live, you can also send a chat to me or to the Zoom host, Brother Jonathan. And those on Facebook Live, you may comment your questions on the live, or you may send a private message to the RCM Facebook page. Okay. Okay. Sabi po, this will be our last question for tonight. Sabi po, thank God for tonight's topic. We do believe that there are no small acts for God. However, in church, the small acts are usually overlooked, and the big acts are what is most often commended. Doesn't this contradict what we believe and what we want to encourage in others?
Hindi ko makuha ulit, Elisa. Can you repeat the question?
Okay po. Sabi po, thank God for tonight's topic. We do believe that there are no small acts for God. However, in church, the small acts are usually overlooked, and the big acts are what is most often commended. Doesn't this contradict what we believe and what we want to encourage in others?
Yeah, actually, ganun nga nangyari. Kasi we are just human. We tend to look at those things na kung sino lang, parang nakita mo ang church congregation, makita mo sino nag-preach, sino ba nag-song lead, sino ba ang nare-recognize natin, hindi na nakikita yung iba. Para bang part ng body yan. Na minsan ba yung kuko mo ay yung paa mo, hintuturo ng tamo, parang hindi siya importante. Pero pag nagkasakit yan, delikado rin, papilay-pilay ka, sira ang pati BP mo tataas, yung mga ganun. So may mga small things na they are very important din sa whole body ng function ng tao. Hindi lang yung mukha, kasi yun ang nakikita mo. Kasi nakaupo siya, yung mukha lang nakikita mo. Hindi mo nakita yung kamay, ano nangyari sa kanyang paa, ano nangyari sa kanyang, wag mo na sabihin ano nangyari sa kanyang buhok. Ano nangyari sa kanyang kuko na baka these are very important sa whole body. You have to look at in the whole body. Sabi nga sa 1 Corinthians 12:22, the parts of the body that seems to be weaker are indispensable, di ba? Pero yun pa ay importante sa lahat ng bagay. So parang orchestra na yan, nakikita mo lang yung nagbabayolin ang talagang nangunguna doon, hindi niyo nakita yung bass, ang effect ng mga others na background music na it will give the whole orchestra the beauty of the song or of the music. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Deacon Glenn, for your talk tonight. That was our last question. Indeed, small acts are just as important as the seemingly big acts. All of what we do for the Lord is important, and without those small acts, it would without those small acts, the big acts probably won't be able to stand on their own. Talagang importante po yung whole system or yung whole all of the fractions to make the whole is important po. And there's no such thing as small act when it's for the glory of God. So thank you again. Before we end, we have a few more announcements. So